I am so excited to have today Yvonne and Jude from OMEP to share with us all the different nuances and idiosyncrasies and best practices with manufacturing. So Yvonne, do you want to introduce yourself? And then Jude, and you guys can provide a little background about your organization before we dive in.
Sure. I'm Yvonne Muir with Oregon Manufacturing Extension Partnership. I'm a senior manufacturing consultant with them. I've been with them for almost 4 years now. And background, mostly manufacturing. Got my roots in lean manufacturing at a company up here called ADEC. I worked with them for a long time and developed got my training and a lot of what I do today from a lot of what they helped me to learn and sent me to a lot of the different associations of manufacturing excellence, Toyota Kata, but have been working in manufacturing for almost 30 years now. So I'm happy to be here and to meet all of you and excited for our discussion.
Hi, my name is Jude, and I relate to all of you that are just overcoming an illness. I am on the tail end of it, and it's a fun one, let me tell you. But I'm really happy to be here with all of you. I work with OMEP. I've been with them for about a year. I work on as an account executive, which means that I do initial meetings with clients to better understand sort of what challenges they're facing. And that could be anything from workforce to operations to business strategy planning. And so what I do is I kind of clarify the problem and their readiness. And then I would call someone like Yvonne and say, hey, here's some of the challenges this company is having. What do you think? And then Yvonne would come in, do an assessment, and then kind of determine a path forward if that's what's appropriate for the client. My background is that I ran my own manufacturing company for 10 years. And so I have the experience of the frustrations, the struggles. It's all very real to me when I look at some of our clients that have experienced or are experiencing challenges. The look in their eyes is one that I can really relate to. So that's kind of a little bit about me. I'm looking forward to feeling healthy and being back out there again.
Wonderful. Well, you guys, I wanted to just sort of provide this space so that we could learn from these experts in the field with manufacturing. You know, from a personal stance, I've had challenges engaging that industry right now, and I know there's all sorts of reasons, but I'm sort of making speculations because I have had that lack of connection to really learn what's happening right now. Of course, we have supply chain issue, we have, labor issues. So I wonder if either Yvonne or Jude could kind of give us an overview of sort of a status in the industry, like what they're seeing, what you're hearing a lot of, and then maybe from there we could work towards the more nitty gritty and how to best serve and support the companies in our regions that are in that sector.
I'll go ahead. Status out there. Currently, I'm working with 5 different companies. One's a little more on the service side, but mostly hearing just hard to attract labor and get good labor out there. So they're struggling to, the whole attract is a big struggle right now. So I kind of have a theme here of attract, engage, and retain. And right at the get-go of the attract is where I see a lot of the companies struggling. Even now, some of the companies where I thought they had some stability in their labor, working with a company that has 400 employees, they're starting. That one's, let me preface that's a union shop, and they had pretty stable labor throughout COVID and all this time, and now it's starting to affect this company as well. So, which was really surprising to me. They have a better pay range than what I see with other companies, some nice career pathways, but, looking at all of them, I'm just seeing, the whole turnover increase. It seems like people are popping over for that extra $1 an hour for a company down the road. That's pretty much what I'm seeing out there. I work with a company on the coast, and a company down south and some companies up here in the valley, and it's the same story. So yeah, I just feel bad for the employers. But I also see gaps, which you said we'll get into the nitty gritty later. So, but that's the status that I'm seeing right now, is everyone's struggling to attract and get the people in the door. And I mean, a year or so ago, I heard people say, well, as long as they're breathing, let's just bring them in, which that's not good either. So, because of the desperation of trying to get the labor in the door and get them working, I think some of those companies are starting to pay for that. Well, they paid for it early out of the gate with those type of hires. So that's what I am seeing right now. Without getting too specific with company names and such. So
sure. Jude, do you have anything to add to that overview?
I think Yvonne nailed it. There's, just to kind of play the opposite side of the coin, there are some companies that have managed to be stable during this time as well. Not perfectly, but I think faring a little bit better. And those are the ones that have invested on the opposite end into their company cultures. They've invested in training programs. Someone that is, their interview questions are ones that are engaging with their staff. And when they're meeting with that new potential employee for the first time, they're able to say, look, come work with me. Here's what you're going to get to learn. And here's the pathway that you can grow within this company. And right now, if a company doesn't have that in place, they're kind of like having to find that extra capacity to do that and still make up for those labor shortages. So it's certainly a challenging time. And there's no silver bullet, no easy way to fix any of this. And that's a lot of the work that we do, is working shoulder to shoulder with employers, being able to kind of write the course for the long term.
Can you unpack a little bit more about what exactly you do working shoulder to shoulder with those employers?
Yvonne, I want you to jump in here.
Yeah. Do you want me to share?
Yeah, go for it. I would love to.
Okay, so right now what we're doing with shoulder to shoulder is coming in and doing that essentially as we look at the labor, which is a lot, which is HR. We look to see, as far as the attract, the engage, and the retain, what are they missing? Because we have a lot of whack-a-mole out there where, oh, we're going to go solve this problem and we're going to go solve this problem, but not a full system of looking at their full system of those three categories. So when we get in there side by side, we essentially, I can reference a recent situation where we did a survey of the employees to see what were they seeing. We worked with that HR manager and the general manager to just get a good current state of the organization. How was these different elements through the survey that we asked really helped us point to the direction of where their gaps were in the organization, which was essentially it touched on multiple elements, everything from career pathways to, community involvement and, touching on that culture side. Some other gaps were, just communication, and essentially with all the turnover, employees just felt a little bit lost. And so that transparency and, the employees understanding, where are we going and how are we going to get there? So a lot of gaps were exposed, and there were some good things too, don't get me wrong, that they were doing well, but measuring and assessing the current state is where we started, and now we're applying tools to help them, coach them, work with them side by side, meaning that if we have to do a train the trainer or a supervisor boot camp, or all these where their gaps are, we're trying to help them and build and develop that capability. And with this company, I'm in there twice a month, 8 hours a day, and then also Zoom calls because they are 4 hours away. But that's kind of how we're tackling that situation. And of course, every organization is different. But again, what I see is just, as far as the system level of this attract, engage, and retain, where are we broken, or where are those gaps, and how do we close those gaps up and get them where they need to be to create stability in their work, in their workers, or in their labor, and then go from there, because right now it seems to be a bit of chaos.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is that, on the leg of shoulder to shoulder, we don't, our consultants don't do things to employers. And what Yvonne and our other colleagues at OMEP do is, the employer remains in the driver's seat, because our goal is sustainable results, right? And so we're not wanting to come in with a prepackaged idea of what we think everyone should be doing, because as Yvonne mentioned, every company is different. Everybody has a different starting point. Everybody has a different gap analysis, and everybody needs a little bit of a different brand of encouragement. And we customize that to each of our companies that we're working with. It is, I have just a deep amount of respect for the care and authenticity that our consultants provide for companies throughout Oregon. It isn't easy work. There are many days where you don't feel like you're moving fast enough, right? And you're getting the results quick enough. And you want to see your companies feel successful, because you get emotionally involved and connected in their success as well. So that's just one piece that I want to add to that. And I actually learned about OMEP because my company at the time worked with OMEP, and it was a really big transformation for my company. And so kind of that's kind of another little piece to the puzzle as well. So yeah, that's the only thing that I wanted to add to that, is the care and support that the consultants really give, and the sustainable results we're looking for. We're looking to build relationships with Oregon manufacturers, not checklists and like, here we go, done.
Yeah.
This company fixed. Call us back when it's unfixed.
Yeah. A lot of the companies I work with have kept me around for a few years. So I'm hoping we're doing something right. And we don't do the fire hose approach. We work the side by side, meaning a lot of consultant companies, or some of the consultant companies come in to do this fire hose approach, and then they come in and, oh, you're not doing that right, so you need to fix that, and you need to fix this, and then they walk away and come back, a couple of weeks later, oh, you're not doing this right. Instead, we're in there, we're helping them implement, we're helping them measure, we're helping them assess, and then making sure that the improvements we've put in place, they're sustaining, and the employer feels comfortable with where they're at. Because the best laid plans, you go in there to work on one thing, and guess what happens? You start peeling back that onion, and it's like, oh wow, we didn't see this issue at the beginning, so now we got to tackle that. So it is a step-by-step approach, and that's where that side by side, because surprises come up.
If it sounds too good to be true, it kind of is. and that was the experience that I had when I had OMEP work with me. I couldn't believe that I had someone that was that cared about my success as I defined it, and was willing to kind of work through it, and every time I wanted to resist, no, that's not the way forward. They were patient and really supportive of the way that I wanted to go.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys for that overview. I do want to open it up to questions for the whole group here, but Heather already has her hand up. So let's start it with you, Heather.
Thanks. I kind of wanted to continue on something that Shannon was talking about earlier. And so I've been working with manufacturers in Oregon probably, 16, 20 years. And size matters around engagement sometimes. And I'm just wondering, I've been really challenged over those years, and I know that we're in a different era right now, but have you found that and there's no silver bullets here, but like engaging manufacturers and helping them collectively solve their own problems around workforce challenges or around kind of broader policy issues, anything like that. Like, I guess we're struggling with, is it email? Is it visits? Is it like, what way, or are there ways that you found more success in communicating writ large with employers? And does it, does it have to do with size? Does it have to do with, I don't know, but it's just been really, really challenging, and particularly in these Cascades, because we don't have mammoth, huge manufacturing employers. We have some medium, we have tons of small. So I think it's just been a real challenge over time to how to engage kind of that coalition of the willing that wants to band together and really figure out, do we invest in a certified production technician training and that's going to help create a pipeline for them, or is it something else? Like, just how to engage them beyond just one-offs, because that's not, we're really system builders, we're not one-offs. And I appreciate how customized your services are and you get reimbursed for that. We're the public workforce system, and we need to do things that are going to aggregate and go to scale. So any thoughts on that? Or could someone ask that question in a more eloquent way?
So you're trying to engage these different manufacturing companies and get them to participate. I
would say more communicate with us about needs. We don't have to be in a physical meeting to do that, but nobody wants another freaking survey. I'll just guarantee you that.
I'll scratch that off.
Yeah, and then we schedule these meetings. Is it early in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Can we give you lunch? Like, and it just kind of seems like they all fall flat. And it doesn't have to do with the pandemic. It has to do with hard to engage.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they meeting currently? Like, how do manufacturers?
That's the point.
Okay.
Yeah.
They aren't.
And that's the problem, because my background, I was a frontline supervisor, I was an operations manager, and sometimes just being so in the thick of it, it's hard to step away and take the time to invest in themselves, because they're trying to get that production out. They're trying to work with upper management on an issue. So, trying to get their attention and solve a problem that they're experiencing. And I don't know if that's marketing in a way that attracts them to something that they're all dealing with. What are those big issues that they're all dealing with, where you all can help with providing some guidance or solutions. I think leadership is a big issue. I'm finding with companies that, having even just a supervisor boot camp, or, the leadership team is following some standards across the board, because you have this supervisor doing this or this leader doing this, and it's disconnected. But that's just my own selfish. If we had some standardization and everyone was following guidelines and went through a training program for their company, wouldn't that be great? But they don't see that problem. But yeah, so I just remember, I have to do reviews and I have to do this, and, my whole list, and then trying to break away was very difficult. So I feel for them, but I understand. I don't think I answered your question, but that's
maybe it's like who at the company, because so many of them don't have an HR department. So it's kind of like,
oh, gotcha.
Shannon, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that it sounded a little bit like, Yvonne, maybe we're taking the wrong approach as far as how to dangle the carrot and show our value add. If I were to, suggest they meet with myself and Joe Milazzo and say, hey, he's a specialized recruiter, to help offset some of this, labor shortage problem. And then we're also looking at, what are those categories we can build in more training programs so that you don't have shortages in the future. If we approach it from that, as opposed to get together with other manufacturers in your group so that we can share our woes and then solve those problems. Like if we, is that a better approach? Do you think that would score a little higher?
I mean, it's all experiments, right? I mean, I think, you try and you measure and assess and see what worked, but I do know that a lot of these companies are very resource constrained.
Yep.
So that is very difficult right now.
I would add to that, like that, Yvonne, that's exactly what I was just going to say, is that anything that touches on capacity for an employer right now is going to go to the back burner. And I think manufacturing, just to kind of talk about, you're right, this is not just a pandemic problem. The pandemic has really magnified it. We have a few things going on. We've got the pandemic, we have supply chain. We also have a lot of older people retiring. So there's a real struggle to get that institutional knowledge documented. The days of like, just go hang out with John on the line and learn from him are coming to an end. And so employers are stretched quite a bit. And what they want to know is they want to know a solution. They don't want to talk about the problem anymore. They want to know, what are you going to do for me? How quickly will the problem be solved? And I just see a lot of these really small manufacturers kind of going into silos. And aside from that, one-off approach, which is what we're doing, it is a little bit harder to connect with them.
Is there a way that we could make relationships with people like you, and you guys could help warm intro and pull us into the fold? Is that something that you see would make sense for your organization?
I think that would be a great conversation to have with my boss, the VP of client engagement. He sort of holds a lot of the ecosystem for those relationships. Typically, we try to stay away from, we keep organizations that we work with as referrals, but we don't do any kind of mass appeal to folks. And that's again, because we're so focused on that customized solution. It's that manufacturer feels really seen, heard, and willing to work on their own problems when they're working with somebody that actually cares about them and is taking the time. They don't want a blanket approach to their challenges. But are you a resource or tool in our toolbox? Absolutely, 100%. It's like we couldn't do our work without the great work that you're doing.
Right. We share information. We have a lot. I mean, Tammy Trout is essentially our HR organizational expert, essentially, and has done some great work with us. And I know
she was our operator in Central Oregon, so we know Tammy well.
Yeah.
I learned about a year to understand our system, so she'd probably be a good person.
Yeah,
Tammy's the best. Yeah.
And Yvonne, I know that you have a limited time with us, and Jude, you have a little bit longer, I think, than Yvonne. Real quick, before you leave, Yvonne, you mentioned that there were gaps that you saw, and there were practical, like nitty-gritty solutions you were seeing. Can you touch on that real quick?
Well, most recently, a client that I worked with, essentially, we had an HR manager that was out there, recruiting, but not measuring and assessing once, the person was delivered to, let's say, to the operations managers. So, in measuring that whole attract, engage, and retain, we noticed the gaps of, well, we need to fill the gap with the train the trainer program, because the employees on the floor don't feel like essentially they felt like, here, just, jump in, work here with Johnny. And, so improve your onboarding program, improve your train the trainer program. Let's look at your supervisors and make sure that you all are consistent across the board, because if that, employee goes from one department to another department, we want to be consistent in how they're trained. Other gaps were, just basic, your job posting is like you're getting hired to be a rocket scientist instead of, talking about the big picture, come and be part of our team. I mean, some coaching on that had to happen. If I was a new looking at a job and read their job posting, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm not qualified for this. So some coaching there had to happen. But there was a whole slew of things that I shouldn't say that, but there was some things that they really needed to work on for improving those gaps. But it took that assessment to get us there. I mean, we had having the ability to share career pathways, because if you want them to stay with the company, show them that there's opportunities in other departments. Interview for behaviors or the person versus just technical skills. Give a tour, talk about how their job fits into the full system. And then once you're engaging, make sure you're taking care of the culture, make them feel welcome. I talked about onboarding and supervisor and train the trainer, but that retention is where they were struggling, and the turnover was an issue. And, we had to look at their hourly rate that they were starting people at for the positions. I mean, they were paying too low. So we had to, and then having, if you're an operator one, you should have a pay range, that helps retain. So they say, oh, wow, okay, I can go from level 1 to level 5, and these are my ranges. But this is what I need to do to go to that level 2. Put the onus on the operator, not the push system of the supervisor. But if they want to move up to that next level, how do we get them there? But they have to pull it and do the hard work to get there. So, I mean, that was a fire hose approach, sorry, but that's essentially, what we discovered in that assessment. And I have to thank Tammy Trout for helping us through that. So she did a lot of the hard work there.
Yeah.
Joe, do you think you could provide a little insights as to your day-to-day challenges when you are serving this industry, so that we could get down to the practical solutions?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think we're talking about, the elephant in the room, right? The workforce. It's all about workforce. It has been pre-COVID, wherever during COVID, and it will continue to be such throughout the rest of my career, or our careers. I think we all know what happened with the workforce. I'm not going to be redundant. But that is the number one issue. When COVID first hit, of course, supply chain issues were huge. I was working with manufacturers that couldn't get equipment in, rebuilding their facility. I think, again, I can't agree more as far as the attract, engage, retain. One of the problems that I've been seeing in the past 18 years in manufacturing is that you have floor supervisors on the floor who don't know how to be supervisors. So what does that do? They have the 1980s, 90s mentality of management style, right? And so they're beating up their employees and they're leaving. One of, and I talk about these issues on a daily basis and offer, some of my suggestions. I've worked in manufacturing previously. I think, as far as the retention, what I'm seeing, of course, training your supervisors is big, but also work environment. When you walk boots on the ground at some of these facilities, you walk into a place and you're like, wow, this is amazing. It's clean, it's automated. They have, lean manufacturing principles in place, 7S, lifting assist. And it's those types of things that it's really going to keep your employees around, being transparent, what's going on with the company. But, what else am I seeing? I mean, honestly, one of the reasons why you may be having a problem engaging with manufacturing too is that, yes, they're under a heavy load, a heavy stress. I hear all the time, and I can list the companies that actually HR is on the floor. The recruiters are actually on the line having to assist in manufacturing. I see that a lot now. Also, at least here in East Cascades, I see HR departments right now extremely stressed out because they have corporate on the other side of the country, or, you know, in Portland, really putting pressure on them to, you know, gain employees. And right now, it's a tough game to play. So, point is that these HR departments are actually revolving. I see folks going from one company to another, almost like a revolving door. They're like hired guns, you know, and they're not the only ones. You know, the line staff isn't the only one chasing a dollar. It's also HR, right? But, you know, some of the, you know, another thing too is, and I consult on this on a weekly basis, all this, is how do you write a job listing? I mean, it's something that simple. You know, you can go check any job board, and it's like, when you leave missing information out, it's the human mind that has a tendency to go negative. If you don't list the hours, if you don't list
Pay.
pay, wage,
Yeah, okay,
benefits,
thank you.
you know, their mind goes straight downward and say, well, they don't want to pay. I'm gonna be working graveyard, swing, or, you know, night shift. There's it's a very complicated puzzle to some of the issues that I'm seeing, and I could probably speak to it for an hour. It's very complicated, and some of these have been long-standing pre-COVID too, right? But you know, I think also too, touched on it earlier, is these internal workforce development initiatives as far as retention, the training, the you know, there's a lot of gaps out there. You know, it's I see it on the daily. Safety issues are out there sometimes when I do, you know, I'm not going to mention names, but, you know, you'll see blatant safety violations. And I'm telling you what, the work environment matters. That's, to me, is probably the number one reason why employees jump ship, so to speak. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yvonne, I want to be respectful of your time. I'm doing a time check. How are you doing?
I have a couple more minutes. I'm doing okay, thank you. But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I want to make sure you guys actually know, not only do we have Molly from Oregon Commission of the Blind in the room, but Melissa Rodriguez joined us, and she's from VR. And I'm curious if you guys have any insights into the current status of, you know, utilization, that undertapped labor market through this industry in manufacturing.
Well, this is Molly. I put a couple things in the chat, Shannon, just around, you know, the availability of part-time schedules, flexible schedules. You know, many of our job seekers are relying on public transportation or Lyft services. And so the scheduling is really important to have that flexibility there. Job shares sometimes, you know, when it comes to manufacturing, depending on, you know, our clients with vision loss, sometimes we have to come in and do a work assessment, you know, to just make sure that we could safely have someone in that space. Many times they're working with a job coach in an environment like that, or using a service like IRA that, you know, has guided assistance. We've used those in FedEx and Amazon warehouses throughout the state. So it is possible, but, you know, it takes a little bit of that work to come in and do those things. So having that flexibility is hugely important, both in scheduling and just, you know, the availability for us to come on site and put some of those accommodations in place, brainstorming. And then I had just commented on Joe's you know, point about the job descriptions. And sometimes we see so much lumped into those job descriptions as requirements. And it really, you know, excludes a lot of people who, might actually apply if it weren't so, so many things listed in there as a requirement. And I can say, just not specifically in manufacturing, but a lot of times driver's license is added in. And then when we, make a call to, just to confirm or, make sure, is that a requirement? A lot of times they're like, well, not really. No, that for part of the positions, we really need somebody who is able to do this, but not all. And so sometimes that gets lumped in there, or lifting requirements that are way above what it's not for every position, but some of the positions. And so I just wanted to mention those couple of things, but that is, manufacturing is an area where we have a lot of clients who are interested, job seekers who are interested in working in that environment, just because of the repetition. And sometimes it's nice to be in a workstation where there isn't a whole lot of moving around. That's an area that we are more easily able to accommodate. So I just wanted to mention those things.
Thank you, Molly. And sorry,
Uh-huh.
Melissa, I had the wrong Melissa. Melissa Valadez is with VR. Sorry, Melissa, you're with UIC. Jude, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, it sounds like, Molly, I just wanted to kind of riff off of what you were saying. When I ran my company, I worked with someone that required supported employment. And I will say that the experience that I had was incredibly positive. I worked with someone for about 9 years within my shop. And the support that was given, the jobs that, it gave me an opportunity. It really changed the way I thought about my shop just in general, how I was talking about each position. So it didn't just carve out a spot for one person with like a customized job list. It caused me to also think about how the rest of my shop was kind of coming together. And it changed the way that all of us interacted with each other. So I would say that the benefits of working with like a job force and supported employment was beyond just what an individual contribution. And so I just want to offer that as support as well. And those conversations with employers are they're a little bit more challenging, because I had the same resistance of, this is going to take a lot of capacity from me, from my staff. But it wasn't that way. I mean, it required something, but what I got in return was 2, 3, 4-fold what I put into it. And I'm still friends, even though I sold my business in 2019. I'm still friends with, with Dan and his family, and it's been just an overall positive relationship. But those are creative options. But I don't know like how on a policy level that can, or like a broader level, it's individual more than anything else. And it's knowing the right people, the right resources. I don't know how to scale that. What we are doing, and you had mentioned a training program. Well, first of all, I just wanted to let you know that I put some resources in the chat. There's a webinar that Tammy Trout did that I have referred to multiple times, because she's just a really great speaker, gets to the point and gives you things to work on. And then a resource for Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but for workplace engagement. And I use that, and I've done several talks on this. I come from the cycling industry, so I spent quite a bit of time doing consulting within the industry as well. And that was a really nice visual or framework for people to work with. If it doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. The idea is that, different tools work for different people. So, and now I lost my train of thought. So I'm just going to stop.
Thanks for making me not feel bad. That happens to me all the time. Appreciate it. Hey, I just wanted to acknowledge the WorkSource band is in the room. They joined, they were having some tech issues initially, and they've been in the room from, hi guys. I can't see who, I can see Dana because your hair. I can't see who else is in your room. Dana, do you want to not only share with me who's in the room, but also, do you guys have any questions or comments where we're at? Just want to pull you in.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. We have volume in here. I'm Dana Dunlap with COIC, and Eric from the Dells is here with OED, and then of course Soledad is here with us.
Hello. Wonderful. Do you guys have any questions or comments on where we're at in this conversation?
I don't. I feel like Yvonne and Jude has touched on really everything that we are seeing. Of course, Joe reiterated that as well. And yeah, I don't have any further questions at this time. I really appreciate their time and sharing that information with us. Because sometimes when we're working within our own silo, we start to wonder, is this happening to everybody? And it really is. This is not just a siloed issue. This is a workforce issue that is broad and wide, and we're all doing our part little by little to see what we can do to make some kind of an impact and to help these employers, and also, of course, help our job seekers skill up to be able to advance within their career. Yeah, it's a tough market right now for sure.
Sure. Well, Jude, you had mentioned when we were talking about like a creative job work. I'm sorry, now I can't talk. Creative talent pipelines. You had said that we're still working on figuring out how to scale it. And I'm wondering if we fold in WorkSource Oregon and we're already connected in with VR and OCB and reentry program, if there wouldn't be a way to collectively scale that those opportunities to this sector if we were able to work together on that. Is that something that you think that your boss would maybe want to explore with us to gather that pool together?
I think it's possible, right? I think that it's a great conversation just to have in general, and I think I would probably additionally put you with our Eastern Oregon consultant, but it's again, it's really hard to have broad solutions when we work on customized, very customized solutions. So I couldn't speak to that with any certainty of any way. Sometimes OMEP surprises me on what works and what kind of would have a broader appeal, and sometimes what might be too heavy of a lift for our consulting teams. But where we do work with workforce sort of resources is we certainly pass those along to when it's appropriate, we pass those along to folks that might need that. But our job isn't necessarily just to point people in that direction. It's to make sure that they're good employers, because you can keep funneling people through, but if the back door is open and they're walking through, we still have the same problem, right? And so I think it's just a matter of where we're focused in kind of this chain of events. And we're really focused on make it a place where people actually want to come to, write the descriptions where that attract the right people. And then kind of go from there. So that's where I see us spending quite a bit of our time. But yeah, certainly at some point, like the getting people through the pipeline matters too. I know,
but I appreciate
I said a lot of words and nothing new.
No, you basically said you're not being short-sighted, and I appreciate that. That you're looking for system solutions and not just Band-Aid solutions, and that's very important, I think, especially right now. I'm looking at the field. What else do we have? What else do we want to ask Miss Jude here? This wealth of information about manufacturing, maybe something practical in your day-to-day that you're kind of bumping up against a wall.
There's a lot I don't know. So I would love to, like, if there's, something we can talk about that would be helpful or useful, I'd be happy to offer what I do know and ask further questions. I think we're all learning that there's no one solution for any of this. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing. I'm learning things from you too. I know that in the years that I ran my business, I only had 10 years that I ran my business. I had turnover of one employee at one time, and I had a crew of about 5. And I know that turnover was the single thing that I knew I didn't want to experience with skilled labor, which is what was my position. And I spent a lot of time building training programs and building ladders for success for my staff and flexibility. And where I've seen some really small micro businesses, so like under 10 employees, be successful is in creating a system that allows their staff to be flexible. So we know that a lot of people that aren't frontline workers get to work from home, have a little bit more flexibility. How do we build that in for our frontline workers? And it's not possible in every situation, but I've seen some really awesome creative solutions out there that allow dad to go home for the soccer game, that allow him to start really early in the morning so that, or allow a crew to start early in the morning so they can avoid traffic. I thought that was really incredible as well. That was a challenge that their team had identified, that they spend 45 minutes waiting in traffic. If they started an hour earlier, they could get to work in 15 minutes. And so that was a motivator for a lot of people. So I think that there's, let's not rule out that connection between management and frontline workers, that connection needs to be strong, and your management staff needs to really care.
Teresa, I was going to call you out and ask if you have any insights into the nuances of the gorge as it relates to this topic, just from the geographic standpoint of challenges and what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think just all of what you all had, are seeing everywhere else. I know that what I have said when I have worked with businesses is that you are drawing people who you're trying to get people who are already working to come work for you. So you need to make sure that your job descriptions are reflecting the culture and the value adds that people will get by coming to your business. So if we can kind of get that through every business mind, make sure that everybody knows what they get when they come to see you. Also, I know that LinkedIn is like a really big place to post jobs and all the other job posting places, but people who are working and are happy where they're working, they're not looking there. They're scrolling social media at night. And if you can get them to be posting things on social media, that's what I have suggested. You need to get people that aren't necessarily looking for a job interested in looking at your place. So, but yeah, I mean, everything that you talked about as far as, finding people just across all job sectors is what we've seen here.
Randy, what about the South? Anything different there?
Well, I think I'd defer to Kim.
Okay.
She's our business rep and works with it day in and day out.
Well, the same thing you guys have all said. We just visited some manufacturing places. I think that was a couple weeks ago now, with Joe came down and Paul from the Bend area. But we're all, I think, I can't say anything different than what's already been said.
Okay, thank you. Gloria, what are you seeing on the job seeker side?
I think I've actually seen a little bit of a mix. I think when there is a good setup, some of the things that Joe has mentioned, where like the environment is on point, there's that team dynamic that's really attractive. And I'm speaking, I think, a little bit more to the youth side, just because, with working with younger job seekers, they really are, I think, trying to identify those supportive environments. And so I think when I'm thinking of like this mix of experiences, I wouldn't say that it's all, have been challenging. I mean, I think there have been a couple of youth clients that I've worked with that have really kind of like found a good match in that space. And so I think kind of like what Joe had mentioned, I think when the environment and the team dynamic and that setup is on point, there's like, a good potential for job seekers to be able to kind of grow in that space.
Well, Jude, I thank you so much for joining. Would you say there's any last nuggets that you, as you've been listening, you thought, you know, I should have mentioned this, or we never talked about this?
No, not that I can think of. I think that I think keeping these communication channels open is really, really important. I think that employers that are challenged right now, I think it's important to remind them to invest in themselves and their long-term strategies while they're working on their short-term as well. And I know that's asking a lot from people after 2 years of uncertainty, but I think that the companies that are successful are taking the longer view.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. And I'm excited to hopefully engage with you sometime in the future and talk more about how we can be one of those tools often used in your guys' toolbox. So appreciate your time. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Well, they were spectacular. Did you guys like them? Yes. Try to keep it down, guys. So now really all we have left is just updates. I mean, I know Forrest, you said you've been working on some video employer job announcements. So would you mind updating us on how that's going? You said you were working with Costco, maybe. Just share with us about that whole project.
Yeah, so it was a kind of collaboration between Joe, myself, and our veterans representative, Paul. He's kind of done some video work for his 5-4 vets initiatives. And so, yeah, we set up we call it a reverse site visit with Costco. And so their hiring manager in our area actually came to our office in Bend, and well, she presented their opportunities to Central Oregon WorkSource and our partners during a Zoom call, but we also recorded an interview with her with just our cell phones, our work cell phones. And yeah, we kind of collaborated to put together a cool little video. Short, well, I think it's like 3.5 minutes. Tried to get it short and sweet, right to the meat of like, how can this hiring manager tell job seekers about Costco's opportunities in a concise way. And so it can help a job seeker envision themselves working for Costco. And they can really learn about the opportunities there, which are many, by the way. And yeah, it was just kind of an efficient way to get lots of job seekers to see and learn about the employer. And yeah, we're putting together an East Cascades newsletter, and I'm going to have the video link in there. We can watch it. And also, I believe Andrea got it posted on our LinkedIn, WorkSource's LinkedIn page. So yeah, we're certainly open to suggestions. It was kind of a first run. It was fun. It was with Costco. As you know, Costco is a big employer, and they take so we weren't able to get like footage at Costco, or, you know, because of all their brands and their customers. But I think it was a great starting point for, we're going to do this again with other smaller businesses that are going to let us get footage inside of their business and really help sell their business to job seekers. But I think it's just a new approach. I mean, we're all having a hard time reaching job seekers right now. And so especially appealing to the youth and some of the platforms that they might be on, trying to reach them in this digital format of just an easy to watch video, low stress. There's no, they don't have to go down and meet the business to see if they're interested. They can just watch this quick little video. And yeah, and we're kind of open to suggestions about how. We just put Joe and I's email address, like, hey, if you're interested, email us and we'll get you connected with the employer, and we can maybe do the staff assisted lens that way. But yeah, we're certainly open to suggestions about how we can make this more statewide, you know, contact your business services email line for, yeah.
So was that just recently completed? How long ago? Like, I'm just curious if you've had time with it out in the public to see if you're getting any response yet.
I think we just, right, Andrea, we just got that posted like day before yesterday, something like that. So
I posted it yesterday afternoon, so
yeah,
not too
so
much feedback.
Cool. Let's let that simmer then, huh?
I
Very
can't
cool.
brag about the views yet, but hopefully they're
Okay.
coming. And the more of this
Good.
we do, the more engagement I think we'll see. That's the hope anyway.
Well, in my 42 years, I've learned that if you add a dog or apparently a TikTok dance, then something happens. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I don't know if you had them dance.
Joe,
I
I tried to get Joe to dance, but you know, he usually he's got too good of moves to share with the public like that. So.
Yeah. Oh man.
We'll
Well,
work on it though.
appreciate that.
We'll get
Yeah,
there.
yeah. No, I'm excited to look at it. I see that she popped the link in the chat there. So I'm excited to take a look at that. That's exciting to see new efforts, right? To keep up with what's happening in the private sector. So anyone else have work or maybe an event that they held between these meetings that they'd like to share the outcomes? Can't remember. Did I share about the tech reboot to this group? Has it been that long? Did I talk about that here? Okay, so we at EC Works, we co-hosted an event with the Tech Association of Oregon on May 19th at Walt Riley's, which was a really fun place to host an event. And of course, you were there, Dana was there. And so that was a great time in a way to connect, get people out of their COVID caves. Although I know my wife's back in the COVID cave, I'm kind of back in the COVID cave, but it was neat to jump out for a minute and shake off those cobwebs. And everyone was so excited to be there. There was 70 plus people showed up to an in-person event, which I thought was fantastic. And we had Oculus 2 goggles that were raffled off by Meta, was one of our key sponsors, and both of the winners were job seekers. Forrest, you pointed that out to me. That was pretty cool. Full stack developers there looking for jobs, meeting a bunch of the different industry leaders. So that was a pretty cool way to have everyone just enjoy a couple beers and some virtual golf, and just a very low pressure way for people to mingle. And they say that if you can get your job, by making those relationships and through your networks, as opposed to just, I guess, cold solicitations. I know that's not always a wonderful way as a secondary, angle in. So anytime I can help provide that, set that table for those connections, I think it's a very valuable thing, even if you don't see what the outcome's going to be immediately, right? Like all of you in this room, I know all of you, and I have no idea what we're going to do for one another in the future. And that's kind of cool, So anyway, any other events or work or something you're excited about that you'd like to share? Joe?
Yeah, Joe here, everyone. So one thing that we're doing in East Cascades is Forrest touched on it, I guess. We're inviting employers to do a reverse site visit, right? So, through the years, as I've been doing these, I often thought, well, this is such valuable intel for just me to witness it. I've said this back east, I've said this out here, and with this digital format that we have, it just makes it so easy to broadcast intel anywhere and everywhere. So every Wednesday during our morning, not every Wednesday, but Wednesdays, we have time set aside for what we call a partner morning huddle. So we'll go out and invite manufacturing companies, all others too, don't get me wrong, to these huddles. And they describe, quickly within 20 minutes, their work environment, benefits, why do you want to work for me? And it's really nice because now all the staff in WorkSource, East Cascades, in Central Oregon, and at times East Cascades, knows what to look for. And employees, they can assist in pre-screening, and it makes the employer real. It makes them, it's just not a static listing. It's just not, it's here's the individual, and this is the opportunities. And we're hoping we get some traction with that. And so next, I think July 6th, we're having Endura products come. So Shannon, I will send you an invite, And if you'd like to come, it's on a Wednesday, 8:05 to 8:20, but we can help, get everybody engaged with these employers because they need all the help we can get. That's an innovative thing that we're doing. I think it's neat.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, please send me that invite. I'd love to see it. Heather, I feel like my computer said you started to raise your hand and then maybe you stopped.
I didn't want to, I took it down because I didn't want to put it up while Joe was talking. I just wanted to share, and some of you may have gotten my email, that there is the legislation that passed this short session around Future Ready Oregon had about half of the 200 million that passed, 95 million in workforce ready grants. And I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. If you work for a state agency, you can't apply, but nonprofits can apply, colleges can apply. There's a lot of different entities. I'm not crystal clear on every entity that can apply, but it may also be that businesses can apply. So something to be aware of is that these Future Ready grants, they were due out the 24th of this month. It's obviously the 29th and they're still not out. So stay tuned. But these Workforce Ready grants, the first round is going to be from the $10 million pool that is state general funds. It's going to be extremely flexible, a really quick and easy application. It's specifically to support manufacturing, healthcare, and tech. So 3 of our 4 priority industries. In addition, it's really about focusing on job seekers and folks that have been really deeply impacted by the COVID experience that we've had these last 2 years. So the priorities are really around people of color, BIPOC populations, people who've been impacted by the criminal justice system. Those are my words. They say formerly incarcerated or incarcerated individuals, which we do have our 2 projects. So we will be seeking some funds around that. And women and people in rural areas. Hey, that's all of us. So it's really important just to be aware of that. I'm happy to make sure Shannon can send that email that I sent out because it shows you how to sign up to get notifications. And it's $10 million across the state. This isn't about the local board controlling all the money. This is about as many organizations and entities in East Cascades workforce area prevailing and getting some resources from this opportunity. We want to make sure that it's not just the Valley that gets funded. So I'll make sure, Shannon, I can resend that to you and you can forward it out to the group just so that everybody's aware. So share it broadly. I'm really hopeful that we have a lot of great competitive proposals from our area. And if anybody has questions or just wants to brainstorm, I'm happy to be available.
All right. Does anyone else have any last closing comments, questions, concerns? I'm not going to hold you the whole time just for giggles.
Shannon, this is Molly. I have just one thing.
Hi,
I
Molly.
wanted to first just thank Joe for those mini business spotlights. I think those are hugely beneficial. And I just wanted to give the example of when Sun River came. One of the things that, you wouldn't know from their job postings or anything was about the transportation from Lapine to Sun River. I had no idea. And that opens a door, when we're so limited, especially for people with disabilities around transportation in Central. That was great to hear that. So I really appreciate having just that moment and snapshot from the employer. The other thing I just wanted to mention, and I don't know if this is going to hit you all, but one of the struggles that OCB and VR is having right now is a extreme shortage of job coaches. So those folks who go out on the work site with an individual to work, side by side with them. And I know one of our vendors, Diversability in Bend, had put out a promo video that went on to KTVZ probably about 6 weeks ago. And I'm really hoping to stir up some recruitment around recruiting more job coaches so that it expands those opportunities, because we have, throughout the state, and I know this is a nationwide problem too, but, job seekers that are ready to go apply, they're offered a position and then there's no job coach available. And so it puts the brakes on that person moving forward. So if there's openings that way, anything that I become aware of, I will definitely share that out to everyone. But that is a hurdle that we're experiencing right now.
Hey, Molly, do you have a flyer for that position with the pay on it?
I think I can get something like that, Shannon. It is, job coaches are hired through vendors. So we have, in Central Oregon, I think VR has upwards of maybe 10, including Opportunity Foundation, and there's some independent providers, Diversability, Good to Go. There's several. So, each job description will be slightly different, with pay slightly different, but I think they, in that video, had like culminated, the need. And so I'll see if they have something printed in terms of a flyer, how to get in touch or apply for those positions.
Yeah, and if they don't have a flyer mocked up, I'm happy to make it with
Okay.
permission. I just want a clear call to action, so like a clear funnel to send people.
Oh, that'd be
So
great.
that,
Yeah.
well, thank you guys for spending your Wednesday morning with me. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and a great long weekend. Don't catch COVID. It sucks. Okay, bye.